days, and I was in the back of her bus, and she's writing music, and we're singing, and she's saying, no, sing it this way, and I'd try it that way. She said, no, let's try another.
She was always smiling, always gracious, always where the Opry needed her to be. But she was the voice of the late 70s, the long-haired beauty with eyes that could break a man's heart and a voice that could mend it. With Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, Crystal Gayle didn't just top charts. She took over an era, but now, at 74, something's wrong. She hasn't been seen publicly in years. Her official website stopped updating. Her social media went dark, and family members, they won't talk. Even stranger, people close to the Opry claim her name's been quietly blacklisted, as if someone doesn't want her mentioned at all. What happened to Crystal Gayle? Was it illness? Isolation, or something far darker buried beneath the surface of her perfect public image? Because there's a detail, one hidden in a medical report, never released to the public, that changes everything. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why no one wants that truth coming out. Long before the mystery, long before the silence. Crystal Gayle was the little sister who wasn't supposed to make it. Born Brenda Gayle Webb in Paintsville, Kentucky, she was Loretta Lynn's baby sister by 19 years, a child born into coal dust, church pews, and kitchen sink harmony. When Loretta went off to chase stardom, Crystal stayed behind, watching from a distance as her sister lit up Nashville. But fate had plans for her too. By her early 20s, she had transformed herself. A new name, a new look. That long, floor-sweeping hair became legend, and the voice, pure silk. A softer, pop-country crossover that confused traditionalists but captivated the world. Her breakout hit, Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, didn't just sell millions, it rewrote the rulebook. Suddenly, Nashville had a new kind of star, one who wasn't afraid to lean into glamour, one who sang with haunting precision but kept her personal life locked behind a velvet curtain. But even back then, some things didn't quite add up. Crystal rarely gave interviews. When she did, her answers were tight, rehearsed, polished. She avoided industry parties. She skipped red carpets. She once canceled a world tour without explanation, citing personal reasons no one ever defined. Whispers started. Some said she battled anxiety. Others claimed her contract barred her from speaking openly. There were rumors of clashes with managers, secret hospital stays, and one story that she briefly disappeared for 2 weeks in 1984 and returned with no memory of where she'd been. Nothing was ever confirmed, and Crystal never addressed it. She just smiled, sang, collected her awards, then quietly stepped back from the spotlight. Unlike Loretta, who stayed loud and defiant until the end, Crystal faded. By the late 2000s, she was barely performing. By 2015, she was rarely seen at all. Then, in 2020, she canceled a performance scheduled for a veterans charity event in Nashville. The official reason? Unforeseen health complications, but sources say she never checked into a hospital. She just vanished. And no one, not the press, not the family, not even the fans, has seen her since. What happened between the woman the world adored and the one who now won't answer the door? That's where this story really begins. She was always private. But now, even those who once called her friend say they've been shut out completely. In early 2021, a longtime guitarist in her band tried to reach her. No reply. He drove to her home outside Nashville, a quiet, gated property hidden by thick trees and an overgrown driveway. He left flowers at the gate, thinking maybe she was simply grieving or tired or sick. But days passed. Then weeks, then months. The mailbox overflowed, deliveries sat untouched, and eventually the gate was chained shut. Neighbors say the house lights flickered once in a while. A curtain would shift, just barely. One swore they saw a figure in the window, but couldn't say for sure it was her. No visitors, no calls returned, not even from family. A relative, who asked to remain unnamed, told a local journalist, "She's not answering anyone. We're worried, but it's like she's built a wall around herself." Theories took root. Some believed she had been placed under a quiet conservatorship. Others thought it was dementia. A few online threads claimed she was in hiding, fearing someone from her past. But one rumor stood out among the rest. That something happened in 2018, a trip she took to a facility in Arizona, not for rest, not for rehab, but for something else, something spiritual. One nurse, who worked there briefly, recalled a patient who refused to speak above a whisper, but kept singing lullabies in the middle of the night. She looked just like Crystal Gayle, but the paperwork was under a different name. When the nurse asked why the woman wasn't listed on the official registry, she was told, "Some guests pay for privacy." And after a single week, that woman left. No car, no ride, just disappeared into the desert before dawn. The facility never commented. The nurse never found out more. But a few months later, Crystal canceled her final public appearance, and the locks on her gate were changed. Whatever happened in Arizona wasn't just personal. It was transformative, because when she came back, she wasn't the same. Her home once felt like a shrine to her legacy. Gold records on the walls, framed magazine covers, shelves lined with glittering awards. Visitors would describe it as warm, elegant, almost frozen in time. A house that whispered of the woman who built it. But by 2022, those whispers had turned cold. A delivery man who'd been bringing groceries for years said he was suddenly turned away. Same customer name, same list. But now, a third-party company paid for everything in advance. A large note on the front gate read, "No questions, no photos." He swore he heard music inside once. Soft, ghostly, a voice singing an old lullaby. But when he pressed his ear closer, it stopped. Property records show the house is still in her name. Taxes are paid on time. The yard is maintained once a month by a crew that arrives after midnight. But no one on the crew will talk. One neighbor tried offering them coffee. They declined and drove off without a word. The mystery deepened when a former stylist came forward, anonymously, through a message board. She claimed Crystal had been working on a memoir in 2017, something raw, deeply personal. She wanted to tell her truth, the stylist wrote, but something stopped her, or someone. She said the last time she saw Crystal, the singer was trembling, clutching a manila envelope to her chest. She whispered, "If anything happens, tell Loretta it's in the piano." But Loretta passed away before the message could ever reach her. Since then, no one has confirmed if any manuscript existed. Crystal's grand piano, once the centerpiece of her parlor, hasn't been seen since. When a documentary crew tried to contact her estate in 2023 for an interview segment, they received a typed response from an unnamed attorney. It simply read, "Ms. Gayle is not available and will remain so indefinitely." The silence felt less like privacy and more like a warning, because when a voice like hers goes quiet for this long, it doesn't just fade into history. It leaves behind a shadow. And Crystal Gayle's shadow? It's growing. Some believe she simply walked away, that after decades of fame, Crystal Gayle chose silence, a quiet life, a final bow. But those who knew her best say that doesn't sound like her at all. She loved the stage. Even when the crowds got smaller, even when the lights dimmed, she still dressed up like it was the Grammys. She never phoned it in, never retired. She said more than once, "I don't want to disappear, I want to be remembered." But now, no one knows where she is. In late 2023, a fan mailed her a hand-painted portrait, a gift meant for her birthday. It was returned, unopened, marked "not at this address." But the address was right, had been for 30 years. Weeks later, the fan drove to the house to try and leave it at the gate, but the gate was gone. The mailbox had been ripped out. In its place, a new post with no number, no name, no trace. The property had vanished from GPS. Literally. One former Opry staffer, retired and in his 80s, says he remembers a time when Crystal came off stage pale and trembling. She had sung beautifully, but her hands were shaking. When asked if she was okay, she replied, "Sometimes I feel like they're trying to erase me before I'm gone." No one pressed her on what she meant, but those words echo louder now. Some point to her music catalog, which has seen unusual removals over the past year. Certain albums, previously available on streaming platforms, have quietly disappeared. Licensing disputes? Or something else? Others have noted how her Wikipedia page has been altered repeatedly. Birthplace wrong, dates changed, photos replaced with lower quality versions, edits that were reversed by users, only to be changed again hours later. It's as if someone is systematically pulling threads from her legacy, and no one knows why. There's even a rumor of a list, a document allegedly passed between music executives of artists deemed non-essential, ones who had served their purpose, ones who had become a liability. And near the top of that list was her name. But the question remains, a liability to who and for what? Because if someone is trying to erase Crystal Gayle, they may have underestimated how loud a mystery can sing. The story might have ended there, an aging star retreating from fame, her legacy fading like a photograph left in the sun. But then something happened that changed everything. A letter surfaced. It arrived anonymously at a small country music museum in Kentucky. No return address, no note of explanation, just a plain manila envelope marked, "For the archives, for the truth." Inside was a single typed page. No signature, but unmistakably written in Crystal Gayle's voice. The phrasing, the rhythm, the delicate but deliberate choice of words. Archivists who had worked with her swore it had to be hers. The contents? Chilling. She wrote of fear, of being watched, of pressure from unnamed handlers who began shadowing her movements in the late 2010s. She claimed her phone had been cloned, that songs she'd written were being held back by her own label. She hinted at documents I was never supposed to see, and something she'd heard during a private meeting, something involving the estates of deceased country artists, publishing rights, and what she called a silencing fund. Then, one final line. They warned me, if I speak again, I won't make it to 75. The letter was dated 6 years ago. She turns 75 this year. The museum didn't release the letter publicly, but a curator leaked it to an online forum dedicated to country music preservation. Within days, it vanished. The post was deleted, the account scrubbed, but not before screenshots were taken. And now, the whispers are louder than ever. Why would a beloved icon need to hide her words? Who stood to gain from her silence? More troubling, why have no journalists touched the story? Why have no friends come forward? Where are the tributes, the retrospectives, the documentaries? It's as if the industry is holding its breath. Even her music, once a staple of late-night radio, has grown scarce. DJs say her songs are no longer on the rotation lists, pulled for re-licensing, they're told, but none of them remember ever pulling them down before. All of this leads to one unavoidable question. Is Crystal Gayle still choosing to stay hidden, or has someone made that choice for her? Because somewhere, out there, the woman with the velvet voice and the mile-long hair once sang, "I'll get over you," but what if she never did? What if she tried to tell us something and we just weren't listening? A strange call came into a local Nashville AM radio station in early 2024. The host, an old-school DJ known for spinning classic country deep cuts, was running his usual late-night segment when a woman phoned in, speaking in a low, unsteady voice. "I want to hear Crystal," she said. He asked, "Which song, ma'am?" There was a pause. Then she said, "Anything. I just want to remember who I was." Before he could respond, the line went dead. He thought little of it at first. Just another lonesome fan chasing memories. But something about the voice haunted him. Soft, delicate, familiar. Later, when he told the story to a colleague, they joked, maybe it was her. But he didn't laugh. He said, "I think it was." By that point, the idea of Crystal Gayle still being out there, but unrecognizable, untraceable, maybe even unaware of who she once was, had become more than just a theory. It had become the only thing that made sense. Her disappearance wasn't sudden. It was gradual, pulled thread by thread, until the fabric unraveled. Even her own family stopped answering questions. Interviews dried up. The few who spoke mentioned her only in past tense. And then a photo surfaced, grainy, distant, taken from across the street by a man photographing old churches. In the reflection of a window, barely visible, a woman with long silver hair stood inside, thin, pale, wearing what looked like a stage gown from decades past. The photographer didn't notice until months later, when someone online pointed it out. He swears the building was abandoned, had been for years. But the timestamp on the photo, March 9th, Crystal Gayle's birthday. Some believe she's still in Nashville, hiding in plain sight. Others think she's been moved, relocated by those who benefit from her silence. A few even say she's not hiding at all. She's trapped in her own home, in her own mind, in a story that someone else is still writing. Because when a voice as powerful as Crystal Gayle's goes quiet, it's never by accident. And as her 75th birthday nears, the question that remains isn't just where is she, it's what happened that made her disappear before she ever left. The mystery should have been solved by now. A woman as iconic as Crystal Gayle shouldn't just vanish. Not in an age of smartphones, satellites, and social media. Not with millions of fans, a platinum catalog, and a voice that once defined a generation. But here we are, facing a silence that feels almost orchestrated. And then came the basement story. A former groundskeeper, who briefly worked at her Nashville estate in 2019, finally spoke up, under a fake name, on a podcast that focuses on Southern music history. His story was cautious, broken, but eerily specific. He said the house had a level no one talked about, second basement, hidden behind an old freezer, down a staircase sealed with wood paneling. He was told never to access it. But one day, when the generator failed during a storm, he followed the noise of a humming power box down there. What he found, he said, wasn't right. One locked door, no knob, cold air leaking through the cracks, and music, faint, haunting, coming from within, not playing from a speaker, sung. He said it sounded like Crystal, but slower, sadder, like someone trying to remember how the melody used to go. He left and never returned. When asked why he never reported it, he simply said, because some voices aren't meant to be found until they're ready. This account was laughed off by skeptics, brushed aside as ghost story fodder. But days after the podcast aired, the episode was pulled. The hosts said it was for legal reasons. The groundskeeper's online handle disappeared completely. And suddenly, no one was laughing. Because whether it's metaphor or reality, the image of Crystal Gayle, alone in a locked room beneath the house she built, has become the symbol of something bigger. A warning. Fame comes with a contract, one not always written in ink. Crystal tried to stay pure, tried to protect her legacy, her music, her soul. And now, as more pieces surface, one can't help but feel the story isn't buried. It's waiting. And the last piece? It may already be in motion. She turned 75 this year, and yet, no tribute, no appearance, no statement. The woman who once stood center stage beneath the bright Opry lights now exists only in rumors and reflections. But maybe that was the plan all along. Because just 2 weeks ago, something unexpected happened. A private collector in Nashville came forward with what he claimed was a demo tape, unlabeled, unmarked, but clearly Crystal Gayle's voice. Not her polished, studio-recorded tone. This was different. Raw, worn, fragile. The song? One no one had ever heard before. No title, no chorus, just verses. Verses that spoke of shadows, locked doors, forgotten names, and being buried while breathing. At one point, her voice cracked on the line, "They took my picture, but left out my face." At the end of the tape, there was silence. Then, softly, a whisper. "I didn't disappear. I was erased." The collector says he doesn't know how the tape came into his collection. It was hidden in the sleeve of a gospel record from the late 80s. But the timing, chilling. Because right after the whisper, there's a date, spoken faintly, almost inaudible. July 9th, Crystal Gayle's real birthday. That date just passed. No sighting, no message, but someone left flowers at the gate of her old home, white roses, and a note that simply read, "The truth will outlive the silence." And now, here we are, 75 years after a legend was born. 45 years since her biggest hit, and just months since her story began unraveling one quiet thread at a time. So where is Crystal Gayle? We may never know for sure, but what we do know is this: she saw something. She feared something, and she tried, through whispers, through hidden tapes, through locked doors, to tell the world before it was too late. And maybe, just maybe, that truth is still trying to find its way to the surface. Because legends don't vanish, they echo. And Crystal Gayle's echo is only just beginning to be heard.